Good morning to all of you. So, I think last week I met Dr. Solanki in my office, and at that time he mentioned to me that this is a confluence of chief executive, HR heads, and academics. And if I look back at my own history, I think it resonates very well because when you are a small entrepreneur, it's very difficult to attract talent. And in early 70s, our turnover was very small. We were located in the heart of commodity markets in Masjid Bandar, and it was impossible for us to recruit good talent. And I think at that time I relied a lot on academics in terms of consultants. So I used to work with consultants out of IIM Ahmedabad, some other HR professionals who were also HR heads. And then as the business grew, I think it made sense to leverage all three, and I see that there is a very good synergy between these three. Unfortunately, in a country like India, I think the academics part is not as well, shall I say, respected by the corporate world in terms of consulting as compared to in international academics. So I think there is a lot of potential in that area for academics to actually play a very important role in the corporate world. And when I interact with young entrepreneurs, one of the biggest challenges they face is HR. How do I attract talent? How do I retain talent? And they are completely clueless because that's the biggest problem they have. And somewhere I think that link has to be formed between what are their needs, and they are not able to recruit good talent. And there is a shortage, a genuine shortage of good talent, especially in HR. So in that case, can the academics play a role of consulting? And I always told them that no point, you don't even try recruiting a good HR person, you may not get for your scale. But if you are able to identify a good consultant, I think that will take you and help you at least for some time. And at some stage when you become much larger, at that time you can afford to have, and you can actually attract good HR talent. So I look back at my own history, and as earlier it was a part of Bombay Oil Industries. When I started working, at some stage we realized that being part of an organization which had other businesses and where there were many other family members, it was very difficult to attract talent because of the fact that there were 4 of my cousins, 3 of my uncles, my father, and me in one company, 3-4 different businesses. But I think when it comes to attracting talent, there is always a fear that this is a heavily family dominated, family managed company. And there could be issues of dual reporting, relationships between the family members. So I had to arrive at a structural solution that if I had to give thrust to my business, and especially in our kind of business, and not necessarily us only, but any business, good talent plays the most important role. So with that, I was able to convince the family that let me take this business away from Bombay Oil Industries into a new company where only one family member will be present. And it was not a financial separation, it was just financially, it was the equal stake earlier and the new one in Marico. But that gave me a tremendous opportunity to attract talent. And if I look back at my own history, I think that was the most important decision I took in my life. Because if I had not moved away from Bombay Oil Industries, the location, Masjid Bandar, so many family members, it was impossible to attract good talent. And that gave me a very good opportunity to improve my talent base, and that has had its own impact in terms of our overall growth. From in the year 1990, Marico took over Bombay Oil Industries consumer product business, which had built up from 50 lakhs. And I think since then we have grown on average in at least 17-18% per annum. And I think the key reason was formation of Marico. And if I really look back at my own learnings, I would say talent and innovation have played the most important role. So what did I do after Marico was formed? We had to recruit a new team, and I was very clear that I started with a good HR head. So my first recruitment was HR head, and the perception that it's a family-owned organization, and I couldn't escape that because it was. Uh, the fact that I was able to recruit a senior HR head from XLRI background and working in Asian Paints and one of the other companies, I think that really helped me in terms of attracting talent, because he was then batting for me in terms of talking to candidates and attracting talent. And I think that synergy in terms of working together was, I think, one of the most important things in attracting talent at that stage. So within a very short period of time, almost I think 6 months, we recruited something like 20, 30 good talent from different backgrounds, MBAs, chartered accountants, and there was a huge upgrade in terms of what we were earlier to what we had recruited. A lot of excitement, but very soon I realized, and we realized, that this has become very chaotic, because all of a sudden when you recruit 30 people from different backgrounds with different beliefs, different way of working, it led to a lot of confusion. How do we treat people? Do we reward loyalty? Do we reward performance? What should be the HR practices? What do we do with profits? What do we do? What kind of products do we get into? And very quickly I realized that if we had to work as an organization, and I had to unify all their beliefs into a system. So at that time I personally wrote down a lot of my own thoughts, which I'd built up over 15, 20 years, in terms of how to deal with people, products, profits, and something like 20, 30, 40 random pages. And I shared that with my team, who was reporting to me at that time. And I'm talking of the year 1991. And it evoked a phenomenal response from my team. Everybody thought that at that time, and talking of 25, 27 years back, very few Indian organizations had thought about writing out values. And there were gaps in my own thoughts, and we discussed those notes for almost a year or so. And I think what happened at the end of that deliberation was that we had a very well structured values document, dividing into people, products, and profits. And more importantly, it had inputs from my team members. So it became from my document to our document, which was very important. So what do we do? I think it's very easy to finalize values, I would say, relatively. But how do you convert those values into a culture is a bigger challenge, and I think many organizations are failing in that. You see in organizations, values are pasted in the reception, but when you talk to people inside the organization, you find that it becomes a laughing kind of point that, okay, this is just for the sake of feeling good, But I think the bigger challenge is, how do you create values into a strong culture, and how do you retain that culture over a long period of time? So what did we do in that? How did we go about doing it? So post finalization of those notes, we called something like 30, 40 managers in a similar kind of setting. And we said that this is something which was started by me, but value addition happened by my team. And we want to use this opportunity to identify, we could still have blind spots. We may not have identified the right values. We may have made some errors. So we want inputs from you. So we divided the group of 30 or so into 4 or 5 small groups, and asked them to critique that value document and come back with a presentation about what they think is right, what is not right, and more importantly, if you decide to go ahead with it, compared to what we are doing today, where are the gaps? So that was a 2-day deliberation, and a lot of issues came up through them. They also identified many gaps which the organization was not practicing compared to what was written in the value document. So that became a lot of database for us to work upon. But I think the most important learning for me in this was that when you involve people, you get commitment, It could have been my values I could have finalized with some consultant and given to my team or 1 or 2 layers down, and it would never have got that commitment. And I think any culture building journey, the top and the senior management plays the most important role, because if I give one wrong signal that I don't value this, I don't practice this value, then it will just go down the line. So it is very important that the senior management practices, owns values and reinforces values on a perpetual basis. So what next? So we had these 30-40 people owning the values, saying that these are our values. And then I personally went to all the corporate locations, which included all our regions, all our factories, our international locations, and talked about the fact that we are embarking on this journey. And we called everybody, including workmen, and in locations where English was not known, in Kerala and in Maharashtra, it got translated into the local language. And we shared with them why we are doing this. And again followed it up with again group discussion, identifying what are the gaps we have in these values. So again we involved a lot of people at that time, maybe 400-500 people or a little more than that, and we got their inputs in terms of, if these are the values, these are all the gaps which we need to fill in, these are our suggestions. So that itself became so much work to do in the next 2-3 years. And in the first 2-3 years, I must say that we gave a lot of attention to values and culture. Sometimes people reporting to me would say that, I think, are you neglecting strategy and going too much into the culture building part? But I think it was needed to get that momentum. So how did we create that culture? I'll just give you a few examples of what are our values. So we believe a lot in openness, trust, empowerment, which we were very important as a part of way to attract talent, because we compete with multinationals in attracting talent at campuses like Levers or Procter & Gamble, and we had to create an employee value proposition which was different from what they were doing. So we said that we are empowering our people much more than any other multinational, because what happens at their end, a lot of decisions get taken at their headquarters, but in our case everything gets decided here. So we have a lot of agility, speed and empowerment. We also provide a lot of opportunities to our people to grow. So we have learning as a value, and learning, in my opinion, is, I have a lot of emphasis on the job learning and job rotation. Then, I mean, I'm not saying no to going to classroom programs, but I think a lot more learning happens when you're on the job and when you rotated. So we have a very active job rotation program. So how did we reinforce something like a trust? We said that, can we give some strong signals to our people, and we call them not employees, but we call them our members. So through some ideation, we concluded that there is nothing like sick leave. If you are sick, you are sick. You're not entitled to sick leave. You are not entitled to casual leave. So we have done away with sick leave, casual leave, and if you are sick, you take sick leave. It may be 30 days in a year, it could be 2 days a year, but we trust you. So there's nothing like casual leave, there's nothing like sick leave, there's one whatever privilege leave, there's no carry forward and all that, because I think leave has to be taken rather than, and he's not entitled, you're not entitled to a sick med leave. We said that we will do away with musters, and I'm talking of early 90s, we did away with musters wherever they were not statutorily required. So in our office, no musters since then, and we trust you, and you come on time. We also had flexibility in terms of coming to work, because if somebody wants to not work, it's very difficult to catch a person. He may be doing something on the computer, he may be doing something else. So I think too much control doesn't help. You have to give signals in terms of trust. So we did away with that. In terms of expense statements, every time if anybody incurred a statement expense, you would have to write it down, you have to go to the boss, whether it's telephone expense, travel expense or whatever else. We said that, can we do away with that? So we have gone into a self-authorization scheme. So we trust you, and you can self-authorize your expenses. We have limits, we have policies, But we believe that if anybody misuses anything on leave or on authorization of expenses, then that person will be asked to go. So we do some random audits, and there have been some cases where some people are misused, but then there is no looking back. Even at the senior most level, that person is asked to go because he's betrayed that trust which you had placed in that person. In terms of openness, we were moving into a new office, so the interior designer was given a brief that people should see openness, so they could see what I was doing. So it was not an open in terms of there were partitions, but you could see through partitions. We have an open house every year at all our locations, wherein anybody can ask any questions to management. It could be related to their hygiene factors, salary, or it could be related to strategy of the organization. So they get a chance to air their grievances through the open house mechanism. We share a lot of information with our members. We talk about our strategy. Even to workmen, we share our strategy. What are we going to do next year? So every year in the month of April and May, once we declare results, we have this, and today now it I think extends to almost 17, 18 locations. We have these gatherings, what we call organization communication exercises, which basically talk about strategy, and then there's open house, and then there are awards which reinforce values. So if somebody has done something in the area of openness, trust, whatever else, we call for applications or innovation, and then we award those people. So basically, I think what I'm trying to say is values need to be reinforced on a perpetual basis. It is just not at that time. Today, if you look at that team which was there, nobody is there in that team. It has been replaced by maybe one or two sets of new teams over the last 25 years. So what is the challenge? So when you have new people coming in, again, you have to treat that subject of values and culture in a serious manner. So there is an induction program where everybody goes through 1 day induction on values and culture, and what was the history behind it, and why are we like this. I think when it comes to acquisition, same thing. We acquired companies in South Africa, Egypt, and it's very different because you're acquiring something which has a different culture, but over a period of time the challenge is to integrate that into a culture. So I've talked a lot about culture because I believe that culture is a source of competitive advantage. I think Peter Drucker has said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I think it is the role of HR to play a very, very important role in culture building. But I think at the end of it, the CEO has to be passionate about HR. If CEO does not take HR seriously, nothing will happen in the organization. HR has to be a very integral part of strategy. HR head has to be without fail a part of the top team. It cannot be that I will invoke HR. And we believe that the role of HR is a very catalytic role. HR has to make line perform better rather than do things which the line is supposed to do. So hiring, firing has to be done by line, not HR. Even union negotiation in our case has to be done by line, not HR. Because HR plays a catalytic role. Of course, they will teach you, they may be present, but ultimately it is the line which has to own. And I think in today's environment where there is this intense war for talent, it is just not HR's responsibility to attract good talent. I think we say that all the line managers are equally responsible in terms of spotting talent from external sources, and you have to treat recruitment like marketing function, because you have to sell yourself, you have to create that image for the organization. Because before anybody joins, the most of the time people refer what kind of an organization is it, if it is not known well. And I think it's very important that you create that right image. And the line has to actually play a very important role in creating image. We also realize that the ex-employees who have left you are your ambassadors, because many times a person who's been given an offer, he may know somebody who had worked with the organization maybe a few years back, and normally there is a tendency to say, okay, what kind of an organization is this? So if we treat all our ex-employees as ambassadors, I think that really helps. And when I say ambassadors, you have to be in touch with them. You have to inform them what's happening in the organization. And there are enough ways of doing that in today's world. And once in a while, you also have to create opportunities for them to get together. So um, when we achieved 1,000 crore turnover, when we did 2,000 crore turnover, when we came at 5,000 crore turnover, we called all our ex-employees above a certain level, um, above manager level, to a dinner. And I think that was our way of saying that, okay. So basically, I think it's important that ex-employees also are treated well, and they're perceived as ambassadors in your journey. I'll just give one other example. How HR played a very strategic role for Marico in the year 93, 94. We had to set up a new factory to manufacture parachute coconut oil. And from all angles, in terms of cost, Kerala seemed to be the best location. But when I talked to my family, talked to my friends, everybody was completely against the idea of setting up in Kerala, because they felt that on paper this may be there, your cost savings, but the industrial relations in that state are, I'm talking of now 20 years back, are very bad. You will battle with a lot of strikes, and you will not just be able to do production in that state. So then we discussed that internally with my HR head and my operations head, and they said that you give us a challenge. We are willing to accept that challenge. We will look at people from a different lens. And I said, okay, I believe in innovation. So come back to me. What are the different lens you want to look at? So they said that we will, first of all, select people by going to their houses. We'll not only meet the likely candidates, but their parents also, and tell them what kind of an organization we are. We'll do proper reference checking. And then I think the key insight which they got was that, especially in small towns, even in big cities, after work, most of the workmen don't have anything to occupy themselves in terms of hobbies, art, sports. So can we actually keep them occupied post-work? So we divided the whole factory into 4 different houses, like in schools, and created a lot of internal competition on art, sports. We offered them, it was a large campus, we offered them sports facilities there, art, music. And I must say that that really helped, because I think most of the negative energy which goes into trade unionism went into a positive way in terms of a better lifestyle, and they were more happier. And it's now more than 20 years we are there, and it's been an amazing experience in Kerala. We have not lost any production for a day also. We won some HR awards for that. But I think it was important to take that decision. So HR played a very strategic role in this, and I must say that we must have saved crores and crores of rupees because of that decision to locate, and not just get cowed down by the fact that others were suffering in Kerala. So I think let me end by saying that HR is a source of competitive advantage, and I think line has to play a very, very important role. I think all managers are responsible and accountable for strengthening the talent pool, because people are every manager's responsibility. So these are my thoughts on the role of HR. I try to condense it in maybe about 30 minutes or so. So if there are any questions, yeah.
When I was HR head of Blue Star, in fact, I've seen how you walk the talk, and you had changed Jaswant Nair to head of marketing, and I asked you, sir, how can you experiment such things? You told, I said, it doesn't matter. I am known for experimenting, and really worked well. So I'm grateful to you that you have experimented, and so far it's going from strength. So really happy to hear from the horse's mouth what you have done for the company.
Thank you, thank you. Pankaj, you want to add anything which have I oversaid anything, or have I understated something? Pankaj worked with us for how many years? 16 years.
Okay. I mean, very rarely you come across an entrepreneur, who very early in his life has been able to see the long lens and the short one. I mean, the entire focus of your thing was organizational building. But I mean, 9 out of 10 you will find are so much short term. You know, we are the entire, and it's part of the organizational life cycle. You know, in a short run, you have performance, and you know, and all these things they really take a back seat. You know, how are you able to sort of bridge this gap? You know, this long and the short, because the short you never spoke about. You turn a lot of speaking about the long term. How did you do the short term performance? How do you ensure accountability? Very tough things, you know, those things.
So I didn't talk about our performance management system, which you may term it short term. So we, like many traditional organizations, performance management is linked to increments. We have split our overall performance management system from the potential of a member. So what we have is, on a yearly basis, we have a very detailed process of goal setting. So how does that happen? In the beginning of the year, the top team identifies organizational thrust areas. So what are the thrust areas which for the organization for the coming year? Then at every location or at every function, there are thrust areas for every factory or every function. That gets identified by that factory's team. And then that gets shared with everybody in that open forum I talked about. So everybody knows where the organization is headed toward, where what are the key challenges in each function or each location. And then that gets converted into our performance management system, wherein everybody above manager role proposes goals, and we are saying that you should only have 4 goals because we believe in focus. So every person can have maximum of 4 goals. So based on what the thrust areas are, each person proposes the goals to his boss. It has to have, again, the goals are broken into 2 parts, basic and outstanding. And then outstanding is basic, we are supposed to achieve, and outstanding has that degree of stretch. So I think it's very important for the line to ensure that enough stretch is there. We also do an audit of all the goal sheets, which is done by HR. So where they find that the goal sheet is not properly crafted or the stretch is not there, they intervene and come back with audit. So I think at the end of April, May, all the goal sheets are finalized, and there is a mid-year review of the goal sheet where how have we done. If there are some factors which have been beyond the control of the manager, a goal sheet is a dynamic document. It's a document to motivate people and not to hang people. So if something like demonetization, which was not known to anybody, had a huge impact on the business, the goal sheet should be changed because it was beyond my control. I couldn't imagine what could have happened because of demonetization. So the goal sheet is a dynamic document. It can change any time, but it's not for the sake of excuse of non-performance, but if there are some other premises or some other external events which have happened which can impact the goal. And then there is a goal scoring at the end of the year, and all that gets determined into a variable pay. The increment gets decided on what we call personal development planning, where we actually rate every person on a 1, 2, 3, 4 rating, and the level 4 is somebody who is a high flyer. He can be promoted. And then depending on what is the rating, if level 1 rating, that person has to be asked to go. I am very clear that you cannot reward loyalties in today's environment. I am completely against rewarding loyalty. I am not saying that those who have worked, you treat them like dirt, but at some stage, if they are not effective, at some earlier stage, they may have been very effective. It's better that you treat them in a humane manner, give them time to find some option, because you can't have weak links in an organization. You know, if there is 1 or 2 weak links in a team, it can impact the morale of the whole team. So, level 1, in humane manner, asked to go, not really asked to, okay, go from tomorrow. You know, you have to give them some time. So you don't want to put them on roads, but most of the cases, people have been able to find some other alternative in a period of 3 to 6 months. And level 3 and 4 get higher increments. It's not a socialistic system. We differentiate quite a lot in terms of what level of increment within the same grade somebody can get twice or thrice than what somebody has got. It's not at all social. I think we have to reward good performers, otherwise they will leave. So I think that's our way of measuring short term and I would say long term. So, I mean, a good score on your goals will not entitle to a higher increment, but good rating on your PDP form may entitle to a higher increment, you know.
Hasji, my name is Naval Marwa, and I am in the business of executive search. I don't know whether you remember the 90s, the period when I was instrumental in picking a few of the people out of the organizations. I can still remember the name Paul Vijay Kumar. He was recently there in your ex-school employee, Praveen Ratan, and I can, yeah, I can name number of them. I have a question because I have viewed Marico from 90s when you started these things, and lately when the things are matured. It's a very frustrating experience for somebody who's changing things and creating a talent in-house pool, and then person like me comes and poaches it away. And that frustration, how do you manage that process? That's number one. Lately, I'm talking in 2001, 2002, this decade, I did find that poaching was not as easy as it used to be in the 90s. So there was distinct element which were inculcated into the employees. For as a headhunter, I had to work a little bit extra to get them. I need to understand your experience in this, because this is a very good learning for people who would be going to transformation stages.
I think 2-3 things. You're right in saying that things have changed today. So on the financial side, you have things like ESOPs, which can actually bind a person, because if he leaves, he's going to lose his ESOP. So we have a attractive ESOP scheme at our senior level, which will bind people to us. We also have, as a part of PDP, we also have started now career mapping, you know. And we, as I said earlier, we have a lot of job rotation, and we say that, okay, if you are a very good performer, we see you going from here to there. Not a guarantee, but I mean, these are options available in terms of career routes. And that can, we need to, again, go on emphasizing the culture part and the benefit of working in an organization like ours. And we've seen umpteen number of people leaving and coming back to us because they're very frustrated going out. Because culture can actually help you, I mean, you're enjoying working, you're looking forward to coming to the office. You're not getting cowed down by a lot of pressure, so you are just enjoying, you're creating your own goals. You have all the freedom to decide things. So I think you need to re-emphasize that, but in spite of that, we also have an attrition. And I mean, if some good guy is leaving, we try and retain, but if you can't, then we already have a pipeline of people, because every year we take management training. So there is a pipeline of actually internal people. But most people leave when they see that the ceiling reach in terms of their growth. I think that is the time when they leave. They don't leave for financial reasons and things like that, because otherwise the culture, ESOP are very important to retainers.
How do you, my core question was, how do you manage the early stages when that talent pipeline was not so ready and still the poaching take place?
I think at that time you had to recruit from outside. There was no other option, but I think you always take a person who's gone, then you try and recruit somebody who's better than that, you know. And every time there's a vacancy, I said, can you get a better person compared to what there was earlier? You take some bets in terms of remuneration. I have taken big bets in terms of giving somebody else much higher remuneration when he comes in. There is a lot of hoa in the organization saying that, how come you're paying? The moment that guy starts performing, everybody is quiet, you know. If he doesn't perform, then you have to ask him to go.
My name is Mohan Joshi. I have worked with German company on leadership role in joint ventures and acquisitions. And I have always seen that German companies try to push their own way of working. And it was a big tussle to tell them that we have our own culture and way of working, and then gradually acceptance comes. And we pick up good from Indian culture and good from German culture. I want to know from your side, because a lot of multinationals are coming to India, what are the strengths of Indian managers that they must carry forward? And what are the learnings or weaknesses they should strengthen?
Frankly, I'm not able to answer that question, because I don't know what are the other, I don't deal with most of our international businesses in similar markets like developing, emerging markets. So I don't know what is the overall style of management in developed countries like Germany or US or anything. And again, India, there is wide variation in terms of leadership style, culture in working in an organization. So beyond a point, I'm not able to answer your questions. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mariwala, I think the biggest challenge people with elevated thoughts that they face is really the short-term pressure of external perceptions. And by that I really mean the stock exchange. So I'm really keen to know, how have you managed to ward off the challenge of what is called the QSQT culture, or QSQT demand, which is quarter se quarter tak? That's the question. Yeah. A quick observation. I have heard of your company, and I am aware of your company. I have heard of you, but this is the first time I'm hearing you. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I have spent 10 years with Levers and 10 years with Cadbury's, and I consult in business problem solving. But listening to you today, what I really saw was the best element of strategy, which is cohesiveness and congruence. And I think today's keynote address will go down as a stellar example of having a clear-cut strategy and total congruence, and of course, walking the talk has been said. Yeah? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your kind words. I think I'll try and answer your questions about the quarterly pressures and the long term. I think it's very important that organizations learn to manage short term and long term. But if there is a real conflict in the sense that you are starting a new business, which may have short term pressures, I think you have to pursue the long term, but at the same time, I think take all your shareholders in confidence, active shareholders, analysts, those who write reports on you. And if they see a rosy future, and you see all the e-commerce companies making losses, but still valuations are phenomenal, absolutely. So I think you have to engage a lot with your stakeholders, shareholders, potential shareholders, in creating that image that, give us some time to, don't put us into too much short-term pressures. That may be relevant for some new business, or some new entry into new territory. But otherwise, one has to be sensitive to short-term and long-term. So how do you blend short-term, long-term is very, very important. So I think from that point of view, the CEO has to plan a little more carefully in terms of the initiatives and achieve a short-term, because we had a real challenge when we went public in 1996. And we were perceived as a commodity company, and we just had two brands, Saffola and Parachute. And we were getting a much, much lower multiple than companies like, say, Levers or Cadbury's at that time. And the challenge was, how do you overcome that perception that though we are based on some of the commodities, but we have very strong brands which have pricing power. And normally in a commodity company, you'll have a lot of fluctuations in your bottom line, depending on when did you buy the commodity, what happened to the prices. So we said that, and our multiple in the market at that time was something like 12 or 13 multiple, price to earning multiple, as against 30 of other companies. So we said that, can we actually overcome this through continuous delivery on quarterly performance? So very close tracking of quarterly. So we almost had 8 or 10 years where we, quarter on quarter, every year we had a growth in top line and bottom line. And that gave a very strong signal that, yes, it is not a commodity company. It has strong brands, and it can get valuations similar to the likes of other FMCG companies. And today we are in the same ballpark, and we've improved our overall, I would say, price to earning multiple substantially. But it needed a lot of planning. And it was not done at the cost of long term. You have to manage that dynamism in the right way. So we have some parameters in terms of how much do you invest in long term, what we call strategic funding. So I think that is a big challenge the CEO and the role of, and the finance head play in terms of ensuring that you manage short term, but not at the cost of long term. I think it's a difficult thing, but in a business like ours, which is more defensive, where you have strong brands, it's easier to do than some other businesses which have more, I would say, commodity kind of, where you depend a lot on cycles, of overall the pricing depends on the cycle, what stage of cycle you are in. But in our case, because of the brands, we were able to overcome this short-term, long-term conflict.
So, with your permission, I'm also tempted to ask a question. So your beliefs and values kind of reflect something that HR folks aspire for. So one is, I'm keen to know how does one nurture this, and is there something that HR people can do to influence such thinking among the business leaders?
So I didn't understand your first question, but what can HR do to influence business leaders? I was just talking to Pankaj before I came in. I think a lot depend on the business leader. If the business leader is not at all HR oriented, he is not at all, he wants his own way of doing things, then nothing in this world will will make HR effective. So I think the key thing is to join an organization which has a good leader. I think to me that's the most important thing, because otherwise your ability to add value will be limited. So a leader who's open, who's passionate about people, passionate about HR. And I think when it comes to joining an organization, it is a two-way process. Just as much as I want you to join me, you also have to determine whether I am giving you the right career, So I think, and we offer that opportunity of asking people any awkward questions they have. So I think you have to, the only way to overcome that is to join an organization where the CEO has mind, has a passion for HR and is willing, because otherwise by coaching and all you can make it happen, but it's not guaranteed. So I mean, if somebody is very close, then you can, the HR head can say that, okay, let's go to a coach, let's change your mindset, but there is no guarantee that that will happen or not.
Good morning, sir. This is my fourth conference with you. I met you I met you in 1988 when you were at Bandup at your Bombay Oils Industries. Then I met you twice when I was with the Piramal Group, and it's the fourth time meeting you here, sir. So glad to meet you here. I know most of it because you had spoken a lot when I met you personally twice, as well as with Piramals. So this is something still novel and something still great to have heard from you. My one question is, how is that you moved out from a day-to-day operational person to now we are not into day-to-day operations. Now we are giving it to Mr. Saugata Gupta to continue the whole as the managing director and CEO. So how did this happen, and what are the lessons for the others? Today we see a lot of these conflicts happening, like you saw with the Infosys, you saw with the Tatas, and there are a few more in the industries. So if you could just tell us, from my knowledge at least, that would be much helpful. Thank you.
So I think ultimately I have a way to decide what is good for the organization comes first, and what is good for any other stakeholder, whether it is a promoter or employee, comes second. So if you're a non-performer or a weak performer, the organization's interests come first. Even when it comes to promoters, if there is a need for succession planning, if there is a need for giving range to somebody else who may be more capable than you, I think the promoter should step down. So I think the exact process of this shift happened, I had not thought of giving up the reins. I had something in mind in terms of age group, but it happened much earlier than what I had thought. And because I think if I had not promoted that person, he would have left, and we couldn't have afforded to lose the person, Looking back, it has been a good decision, because it has, I think, given me a new way to do things. I have started doing a lot of things which I was not doing earlier. And I always say that every 10, 15 years, everybody has to reinvent oneself, because you cannot be just rooted in what you're doing, And there are fears, of course, in terms of what will I do. Because today I spend about 20% of my time on Marico. What will I do with 80%? But I have found ways to engage myself, and I'm enjoying that journey. I'm doing a lot of diverse things. And I think it's a win-win arrangement for the organization, because it has helped the organization. The organization has done well in the last 2-3 years. But the key thing is to decide what is good for the organization. I think that comes first. But many organizations, I've seen that, and the CEO is just not willing to retire. I don't want to give names. So at the age of 75 continues to be. So I think you have to look at it from a long-term point of view, and you have to create a pipeline of succession within the organization.
Well, it has been absolutely a pleasure to listen to you, Mr. Mariwala. and I'm hearing it for the first time. It was absolutely amazing. I also find the questions have been wonderful that have been posed to you. I have a very specific and maybe a personal question to you, if you may answer that. The question is, in your mind, looking back over the last 2-3 decades of experience, how many years do you see it takes a manager in a pyramid organization to start dipping in performance and then resting on his loyalty or depending on his loyalty factor to sustain and survive?
Difficult for me to answer that question, because I think a lot depends on how the organization has grown, how the person grows, you know. Because organization grows, because of growth there is high degree of complexity. The person, we've seen some individuals have grown with, in terms of complexity, ability to go up the ladder. But I can't define a time frame in terms of, but if I had to take a guess, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 5-10 years, you will realize that if the organization grows substantially, the person has not taken steps to, I think it's important that person goes on upgrading oneself through learning, reading, whatever interactions. And if that person doesn't do it, then he will become weak performer, you know.
So, friends, when you have someone like Mr. Mariwala to answer questions, I'm sure the questions will go on, but in the interest of the schedule of the conference, we have to close. All of us had heard about him, but today we heard him, like Mr. Deepak Sethi said, and it only reinforces our belief and in his leadership, in the kind of company that he has built. And I'm sure all of us wish that we have more and more Mr. Mariwalas, and we have more and more Maricos. A very big round of applause to Mr. As a token of our appreciation, may I request a little memento for her, and we wish to continue to engage with him in this effort that we have started.